Vous voulez les regarder? Should we take a look? We'll take a look together. Okay, so we've got some phrases up here to translate that all have to do with dormir, partir, or sortir, and trying to translate those. For numéro 1, the question asks, are you still sleeping? And here I have PL for plural, so we want to use the vous form of the verb. So how did you phrase this, Marie? There's a couple different ways that we can phrase it. Good. Okay, vous dormez encore? We could also, if we wanted to, we could put est-ce que at the beginning. Est-ce que vous dormez encore? Okay. Or we could have dormez-vous encore. Either way, any of those three ways. Okay? Pour numéro 2, are we going out tonight? And then where are we going? So for the first part here, are we going out tonight?
Est-ce que nous allons ce soir?
Good. Est-ce que nous sortons with ONS ce soir? Okay, and Marie, the follow-up question, where are we going?
Où nous allons?
Good. Okay. Bon, numéro 3, when are you leaving for vacation, Chantal?
Quand tu... do you care what form to use it?
Oh, it doesn't matter, I didn't specify here.
Quand tu pars pour
Good. Quand tu pars pour les vacances. Okay, good. And we have the two form of partir, so it ends in S. Okay, et pour numéro 4, I can't sleep late anymore. In other words, I'm not any longer able to sleep, is how it would have to be phrased in French, on the weekend because I have to go to ballet. So let's take this first chunk here. First of all, we don't want to use ne pas, but we do want to use one of those negative expressions. Which one? Ne plus. Good. Okay. I can't. Je ne peux. Okay, so normally we would have je ne peux pas, only here we're just going to take off the pas and insert plus. So je ne peux plus dormir, and then what's our word for late? Tard. Okay, what about on the weekend? Is it sur le weekend or just le weekend would work? Okay, so anytime that we put le in front of a day of the week or a quantity of time like this, weekend, day, week, it signifies that we're talking about each one, everyone. Je ne peux plus dormir tard le weekend parce que I have to go. Je dois aller au ballet. Or you could say à la classe de ballet. Okay, good. That was a long sentence. Were you able to get some of this? Most of it? All of it?
Some of it.
Some of it? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. We are going to kind of do something else with these three verbs. Well, actually, we're leaving the present tense for right now. So, tournez la page in your book. Regardez la page 274. Here we're switching back to passé composé for a little while. And this next section that we're getting into, this oftentimes gives people trouble. It's sort of a tricky concept, just because it's very unlike our past tense in English, so it's sometimes difficult to understand, but we'll just kind of do it a little piece at a time here. So just for a little bit of review of the past tense, what do we normally need to have for a past tense sentence?
The form of avoir.
We need to have a form of avoir.
The non-conjugated verb or whatever. I can't remember.
Okay, so we know that we need to have our subject, right? And our subject is like the person or thing that's doing the action, so je, for example. Then we need to have our helping verb, which in most cases, up until now, for us it's always been avoir, right? And we do use a conjugated form of avoir. In fact, we'll just put the example here. Okay, so if our subject is je, then our conjugated form of avoir would be a. Okay, and then what's our third component? Not the infinitive. We want the past
you
form.
add like the, depending on if it's like I, or if it's like what,
Good.
IR, it's just I, and then ER is E with accent.
Yep.
And RE is U.
We, absolutely. So the past participle of the verb. So for example, if we're using the verb manger, we would slice off the R here and add on accent aigu. Okay? So this whole tense, whenever we're talking about the past, it's called passé composé. Okay? And here we're talking about using any verb, right? So we have our three different kinds of regular verbs, right, that we see a lot. So we have ER verbs, IR verbs, and RE verbs. And so Chantal just said that if we have a regular ER verb, like manger or parler or nager, then the ending for the past participle is just going to switch to E accent aigu. If we have a regular IR verb, like finir, choisir, we're going to switch that to I, or dormir, or partir, or sortir. Or, if we have an RE verb, attendre, prendre, vendre, par exemple, we're going to switch that to you. Okay, so these we've all worked with before. And then we've got some of our regular verbs like avoir in the past tense is eu, voir in the past tense is vu, etc., etc. So for today, we're going to start on a new set of passé composé verbs, and these are called our être, house verbs. And you'll see, tomorrow you'll see why they're associated with a house. It's kind of a mnemonic device for memorizing them. So this means that these verbs, they take the same setup, except instead of having avoir as their helping verb, they take être, a conjugated form of être. Okay, and then the past participle. So the example that I want to work with first is a verb that we use all the time, and that's the verb aller, to go. Since it ends in er in past tense, the past participle will be aller with the accent aigu. But instead of saying j'ai allé, instead we have je suis allé, which means I went, or I have gone. Can really mean either one there. Okay, so I want to take just the example of this verb aller, and I'm going to write out the full conjugation in the past tense for it. So aller again means to go. We've seen it a lot. We use it a lot in the present tense. So if we're using all of the different forms of être as our helping verb, that means we're just kind of looking up here, and we're just going to fill all of these in. So je suis, tu es, il est, elle est, on est, nous sommes, vous êtes, and il, and elles sont. Then we're going to have our past form of aller. So these end up meaning then, je suis allé, I went. Tu es allé, or tu es allé, pardon, you went, he went, she went, etc. Now, the thing where it becomes tricky with doing être verbs in the past tense is that we also have to add on letters to our past participle in order to make them agree with the subject. And we've done the same thing before. We did that like in French 1 when we were learning how to describe people, and we'd have to add on an E to like elle est grande, for example. Or we'd have to add an S if we wanted to talk about multiple people and describe them. So it's kind of the same idea here. So if you are doing the one, if you're the one who is speaking and you're a woman, then on paper you're going to add on an E. Right? It doesn't sound any different when you say it. Je suis allé, je suis allé. Same pronunciation, but it is going to look different in writing. So again, if you're a guy speaking in the first person, je suis allé, which is one E. For a girl, je suis allé, with two E's. Okay? Same thing for tu es allé. If we're talking to a guy, then we're just going to have one E. If we're talking to a girl, Marie, you went, then we'd add on an E to the end. Okay, and same thing for these. Obviously with il est allé, it would always look like this, but with elle, we'd have to add on an E. Okay, then over for our plurals here, nous sommes allés. Us always implies that we're talking about more than one person, right? It's always you and someone else, at least. So we're going to have an S. Okay? We also might have to add in an extra E. If we're talking about us, as in a whole group of girls, there's not a single guy in the group, then it's a feminine group, so we'd add on an E as well. Okay? Exact same thing for vous. Now sometimes vous can mean just one person, if we're being polite. For example, if we were talking to a stranger or Mrs. McLeish or something like that and we wanted to be more polite, we'd use vous êtes allé. If we happen to be talking to a woman, we'd add an E. And if we were talking to two people, we'd add an S. So you just have to really think about who your group is that you're talking about. Okay? Il and elle is always plural. Okay? Ils sont allés. So we'll always have an S there. For elles sont allées, we'll always have two E's. So again, just because we're adding these letters, it doesn't change the pronunciation at all, even with the S at the end. Allez, 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 allez. It's the helping verb that changes, and it's the spelling on paper that changes. Okay? So let's go through how to say each of these then. Répétez classe, je suis allé.
Je suis allé.
Tu es allé.
Tu es allé.
Il est allé.
Il est allé.
Elle est allée.
Elle est allée.
On est allé.
On est allé.
Good. Nous sommes allés.
Nous sommes allés.
Vous êtes allés.
Vous êtes allés.
Ils sont allés.
Ils sont allés.
Elles sont allées.
Elles sont allées.
Good, okay. And you can kind of do the same thing here where you're connecting the sounds. Il est allé, you can make these on there as well. Je suis allé. Sometimes people will do that as well. Okay. Okay, so if you look here at your book, on the chart up at the top, this is what I've just gone over, are these forms, this conjugated form of aller in the past tense. Now we can talk about who went where. Okay. We're going to not worry about on for right now, that can be very confusing. But I do want to take a look at bullet point 3 here. It says these verbs are conjugated with être in the passé composé and have regular past participles. So there's a list, there's a set list of 17 verbs that take être as their helping verb. So, and that's all you have to remember. And we're going to work on memorizing what those are. And it's kind of one of those things that sometimes in foreign language you just have to memorize sets of things, and this is one of them. So that in the future you'll know whether to use être or avoir. And there's a little device for remembering what the verbs are that I always thought was kind of funny. It is called Mrs. Dr. P. Vandertramp. And you guys might have done this kind of poetry where you have, I forget what it's called, where you have one word going down vertically and then you have other words coming out horizontally. And so it's just to kind of help you remember the first letter of all of these verbs. So we'll go ahead and write them in. So the first M, doesn't really matter which M you have in which order, but the first one we'll put monter. Monter is the verb that means to go up. I'm going to turn the camera here for a moment. There we go. Okay, and these are all listed in the textbook, of course, as well on that same page. Okay, then we have rester. Rester is actually a false cognate. It does not mean to rest, it just means to stay. Okay, we've got sortir, which we know means to go out. Okay, then we have the verb devenir. This is D-E-V-E-N-I-R. Devenir means to become. As in, a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, or when I get older, I want to become a doctor. Okay. Similarly, you'll notice they both have venir in them. Revenir means to come back. The P can stand for passer, to pass by. V for venir, to come. A for aller, to go. N is for naître, which is the verb to be born. Then we have descendre, which means to descend or to go down. Entrer, to enter. Are. Rentrer. Okay. Rentrer Rentrer means, it's very similar to revenir. Rentrer specifically means to come home. For example, if we were saying something like, Dad's coming home at 6 tonight, we'd use this verb rentrer. Okay, then we have the T, which stands for tomber, which you guys know already from ballet, which means to fall. Okay, then we have retourner, which means to return. Arriver, to arrive. Mourir, to die. And then finally, partir, to leave. Okay, so some of these verbs we've seen before, some are new. And these, of course, what we have up here, all the infinitives. Okay, so let's go over, it's almost time to go. I know that took a long time and it seemed tedious, but once you have this list, it'll be a nice reference for you. So, répétez classe, monter,
Monter,
rester,
rester,
sortir,
sortir,
devenir,
revenir,
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 passer,
passer,
venir,
venir,
aller,
aller,
naître,
naître,
descendre,
descendre,
entrer,
entrer,
rentrer,
rentrer,
tomber,
tomber,
retourner,
retourner,
arriver,
arriver,
mourir,
mourir,
partir.
partir.
Okay, good. We'll go ahead and stop there for today. Tomorrow, then, hopefully Lauren will be back, and we have a house, what's called the House of Etre that we'll make, which is kind of fun. That helps you to remember what the different verbs mean.